Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to today's episode. It's part of the series on the ANC's failures and victories. This is part of the failure series. And to be more specific, this episode is about the economic and social transformation policies. So let's dive straight in. The African National Congress, ANC, came to power in 1994 with a vision of economic and social transformation aimed at redressing the inequalities created by apartheid. However, with the ANC achieving some progress in spending access to services, its transformation agenda has been hampered by a series of policy failures, corruption, and mismanagement that have left many South Africans feeling disappointed. From the failures of the Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE, to the persistent issues of unemployment, poverty, and inadequate service delivery, the ANC has struggled to fulfill its promise of a better life for all. This is like, it kind of has become a joke in South Africa when the ANC, it's their logo. It's like Nike. What is Nike again? Like, just do it. The ANC is like a better life for all. So it has kind of become a joke because it's become meaningless after 35 years of breaking promises, and like, the policies have mostly failed. There were some like great successes, but they have failed. And corruption is just this probably will be this perennial thing that hangs over South Africa, the shadow that's just holding us back. One of the ANC's most ambitious economic initiatives was Black Economic Empowerment, or BEE, a policy aimed at redistributing wealth and opportunities to historically disadvantaged Black South Africans. While BEE was intended to foster broad-based disadvantaged Black South Africans, it has faced significant criticism for primarily benefiting a small elite rather than creating widespread economic opportunities. The program has been accused of promoting tenderpreneurship, where politically connected individuals and businesses received government contracts and economic advantages without individuals and businesses receiving government contracts and economic advantages without necessarily contributing to a long-term economic development. As a result, BEE has often led to the wealth concentration amongst a small group of politically connected individuals, leaving most South Africans without meaningful economic upliftment. So yes, BEE, broad-based economic empowerment, that created the oligarchy. So South Africa never had a true oligarchy, and then with the ANC we received one. And these oligarchies I spoke previously about, the failure of trickle-down economics, they just really care about themselves and their companies, and they will pressurize the government to have like supermarket-friendly policies to help them, to make them become richer. So that's the problem. Then with this goes something called tenderpreneurship. So it's like entrepreneurship, but tender. Like when you put a advertisement out to do some government work, it's a tender, right? And we called it, or we still call it, tenderpreneurship, is when a politically connected individual, like engineering, civil engineering, like any project that can be done, they apply, so like logistics, they create a shelf company or whatever, and then some other company that owns that company or vice versa, and then they create this engineering company or whatever, and they actually, all they do is they will outsource the project, the main work to be done, to another company, and that company, they would like, that company gives price X, and they will just like take that price, add their like cut, and then present that to the government. And then usually that, in a normal country, that won't work, because then the bid will be too expensive, because you're adding the price of this useless middleman. However, it's not a totally useless middleman in South Africa, because this guy has the connections, like a family member, just a friend, or someone who will also, like an insider in the government, who they know, who basically they can corrupt. And this guy will then sign a document and say, okay, we will give company A this project because we think they've got the best like attributes to do this. However, the company does not. And then you lose a lot of money, point one. Point two, what's even worse is that like quite often it's just incompetent company, and like they can steal the money, or like there's often a lot of corruption going along with it. Not only corruption to get the project in the first place, like once the money is paid, the first like deposits, they simply steal it. The shift from BEE, broad economic empowerment, to broad-based black economic empowerment, or triple BEE, was intended to address some of these shortcomings by promoting more inclusive growth. But issues of inequality and cronyism persisted. Triple BEE has still largely failed to address the structural economic barriers faced by the majority of black South Africans. Instead of fostering genuine economic empowerment, critics argue that the triple BEE has become a tool for patronage and political favoritism, which government contracts are awarded based on patronage and political connections rather than merit. This culture of patronage has not only undermined economic transformation, but has also damaged public trust in the ANC's commitment to reducing inequality. So yes, then we get, so BE was supposed to be upgraded was supposed to have this new great incarnation with triple BE. And to be quite honest, it kind of made it worse, where like the inequality just became even broader, like, and it was about, favoritism and cronyism and patronage all the way. Like now and then you had like really good people who benefited from the system and who were good, still are good business people, and like they deserved what they got. That can't be taken away from them. But in many cases, like triple B is like a big bone of contention in South Africa. I'll make a video about triple BE, just exploring, its successes and failures as well, like a SWOT analysis or whatever, PESTEL, and look at it, because it's part of our recent history, and it will be part of our future for, I don't know, 20, 30 years, God knows. But it is there. It's like a very real thing. And we can see, we should like maybe also think about some better solutions, or like how can we improve triple BE to be results driven, because that's in the end what it's about. The results should be delivered. Housing. has been another area of concern under the ANC's transformation policies. While the Reconstruction and Development Program, or RDP, initially provided housing for millions, the program has been plagued by poor construction standards and mismanagement. Many RDP homes were built quickly and cheaply, resulting in poorly constructed houses that deteriorated rapidly, sometimes becoming uninhabitable within a few years. Issues such as inadequate sanitation, lack of electricity, and poor structural integrity have left many beneficiaries dissatisfied. These problems highlighted the ANC's failure to ensure quality and sustainability in its housing projects, leading to frustrations among citizens who had expected a higher standard of living. So, yes, this RDP plan, once again, they got a bunch of contractors. Many of them were, in the spirit of the RDP or the BEE. I'm not saying, by no means am I saying BEE people in general are incompetent. I'm just saying the ANC did get a lot of people who didn't know what they were doing, or either didn't know what they were doing, or I would rather go on the point of they were trying to cut costs. I see that in many countries with poor infrastructure that can't be used once a project is completed, because they used the wrong cement or poor, they skimped on they used less cement and more sand in the project. They used the poorer quality of wood. They used inadequate roofing tiles. The foundations weren't properly secured. So there's many reasons. If you're an engineer, if you know anything about RDP homes, please drop us a message. But most were built well. But when you're going to do a infrastructure project, you want everything to be done well, and they couldn't do it. The ANC's Reconstruction and Development Program, or RDP, also struggled to meet its ambitious targets for service delivery, particularly in rural and underdeveloped areas. Despite significant investments, access to basic services like water, sanitation, and electricity remains limited in some parts of the country, leaving millions without reliable infrastructure. Water access has been especially problematic, with some rural communities still lacking access to clean water, while others experience frequent water shortages due to infrastructure decay and poor management. This uneven service delivery has perpetuated a sense of neglect and inequality, particularly in communities that suffered the most under apartheid. So, yes, water access, we spoke about it in the Victory video. They did provide water to many, many, many places, the ANC. But when the rollout is going to be so big, there will be quality issues. And because it's not Germany, or, your budget is laid out in such a way that, let's say, most of it is dedicated to building new stuff as opposed to maintenance. The pipes may get blocked up by sand or mud or whatever. I've seen viral videos or videos on the news where a woman in her house would open the tap and there would just be mud and stinking sewage and frogs and worms. I haven't seen worms, but I've heard of people turning open their taps and there's maggots coming out. Maggots, God knows how they got in there, but they were in there. So you see, this is a huge problem, because like when this happens, when your water structure, your infrastructure fails, and there is no money for maintenance or no money for a do-over or a contingency plan if the project fails, then what simply happens will be that you ignore it, and then what they get is these so-called water tracks. So you'll get a water track that goes up to a rural village and give them water, I don't know, once a week, once every 3 days, I don't know, but not frequently. And there's not a lot of water. It's essentially enough water for you to drink, maybe clean yourself, and then that water, the gray water, you have to then put into your garden. So it's like really, a huge inconvenience for such communities. The ANC's economic policies have also faced criticism for their failure to tackle high levels of unemployment. While the growth, employment, and redistribution, or GEAR, framework in the 1990s sought to stimulate growth and create jobs, it was criticized for its austerity measures and emphasis on market liberalization, which some argue did not prioritize poverty reduction. Instead of reducing unemployment, GEAR led to job losses in some sectors, and many South Africans were left without the economic security they had hoped for. In the years that followed, South Africa's unemployment rate remained persistently high, with youth unemployment in particular becoming a serious social issue. The ANC's failure to address job creation and skills development has contributed to growing disillusionment, particularly among young South Africans who feel disconnected from economic opportunities. So what also happened here with this like GEAR program and the employment is that we didn't like sign at that time in the late 90s, we didn't sign good deals with the foreigners like the EU, like the US, China, what have you. We didn't sign good deals. So we got a lot of imports that kind of affected our industries. And like a lot of industries like just had to close down. I remember one of the industries that was particularly badly affected was the textile industry. So like thousands of jobs were lost. I think 30,000 jobs or something like that were lost because we struck a deal with a foreign company and a foreign government, and they just started exporting their cheap material into South Africa, killing our local market, which has been going, that market existed for decades and decades. Now suddenly we are wearing imported clothes and clothing, and we used to make it ourselves. So in many cases, this is where the neoliberal element comes in, is if you just sign trade deals left, right, and center without proper consideration about how it will affect your economy. You can say, okay, cool, like the textile workers may be fired, it will bring down the price of clothing for, let's say, by 5% for all South Africans, and that's a good thing. But then you still need to take care of the textile workers. Not only do you need to pay them like severance, or actually you need to pay them more than severance. You need to pay them money, a transitional money period, while they're looking for a new job, because they may not find a job in 1 month. They may not even find a job in 2 years. And you need to pay them to get retrained so they can be useful in a different sector. That's, you need to adapt your economy, and the ANC didn't do that. One of the most visible economic failures under the ANC has been the collapse of state-owned enterprises, or SOEs, which were meant to drive growth and provide essential services. SOEs like Eskom for the electricity, South African Airways, SAA, and Transnet, transportation, have faced severe operational and financial challenges due to mismanagement, corruption, and a lack of accountability. Eskom's ongoing crisis with power generation has led to frequent rolling blackouts, negatively impacting businesses, households, and the economy as a whole. The government's repeated bailouts of businesses, households, and the economy. The government's repeatedly struggled to bail out SOEs, and it put a strain on public finances, leading to growing concerns about fiscal sustainability. The ANC's inability to reform and manage SOEs effectively has hindered economic growth and further weakened public confidence. So this SOE thing, the state-owned enterprises, as we call them in South Africa, this is a massive topic. I'm going to make a video series about it because, like, look, there's these dualistic arguments of like, okay, we need like, you know, state-owned enterprises for the people, for the public, you know, more your left-wing revolutionary idea, you know, public ownership. And then on the other side of the coin, you have like, okay, it should be totally privatized at all costs, no matter who invests, you know, even if it brings up the price. So there's these two arguments, but the bottom line is you can go and have a look at these things. It's very easy to see. Like South African Airways went bankrupt. They had to be bailed out so many times. And then for the money used to bail them out, there was like very little that could be used, that could be shown of like, okay, here is the money we spent on like South African Airways, and this has helped. Now they can suddenly keep this route to Istanbul commercially viable for the next 10 years because they used it for marketing, and this marketing worked like that, and now they're back in business. You know, like, I don't know what they even did with all that money, hence my quest for making this video, because, you know, there was like so many excuses also, like from the left wing and the right wing about whose fault it is and everything. It's just ridiculous. The same with like Transnet. You know, Transnet has had so many problems with corruption and ineptitude that it basically destroyed our railway systems. And now the South African ports also look very dodgy. And the South African ports are our lifeblood, by the way. And then Eskom, ask any South African you know, like regardless of their age or gender or qualifications or station in life, ask them about Eskom, and they will have a very interesting story to tell you. Like, and if you speak to 10 different people from 10 different backgrounds, you'll get a pretty good background idea of what happened at Eskom. And this is a massive ANC failure, because this is something, if you're going to own companies like, you know, SOEs and stuff, like the ANC did, because the ANC's government, then you have to look after them. You know, you have to manage it. The ANC's public infrastructure programs intended to create jobs and reduce poverty have been marred by widespread corruption and misallocation of funds. The Expanded Public Works Program, or EPWP, launched in 2004, was meant to create short-term employment opportunities for the poor. However, allegations of corruption and nepotism have plagued the program, with reports of funds being siphoned off and jobs being awarded based on political connections rather than genuine need. This has reduced the program's effectiveness and prevented it from achieving its intended impact on poverty alleviation and job creation. This is another problem. I think India has a similar problem where you can actually go and buy a job. Okay, I know it sounds like counterintuitive, like you go to a job to make money and are you buying a job, but like the person doing the hiring, they make, like let's say your salary is going to be 120,000 years, sorry, not that, 120,000 rands per year. Someone sells this job to you for 30,000 rands once off. After 3 months, the money that you paid him is like has been paid off. You understand? So there is a market for buying jobs, and this is unfortunately being taken advantage of, and all of it was under the ANC's watch. And you know, these things, what I'm telling you now wasn't discovered yesterday. They've been known for some time, 2004 they initiated this program. So it's been known for 2 decades and they haven't done anything about it. So you see, this is, one of the, another little chain weight on the ankle of South Africa trying to move forward. Next up, social grant programs have been a significant part of the ANC's poverty alleviation efforts, providing a safety net for millions of South Africans. However, these programs have faced administrative challenges and allegations of mismanagement, particularly during the tenure of Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini. In 2017, South Africa's social grant system was nearly disrupted due to issues with the South African Social Security Agency's SASSA contract management, putting millions of beneficiaries at risk of not receiving their grants. This crisis highlighted the ANC's failure to ensure the effective administration of critical social services, creating insecurity and anxiety amongst the country's most vulnerable citizens. So, there's social grants are good. I believe in social grants because it's just a fact of life that some people don't make enough money to, especially very old people, single mothers, students coming out of varsity that for some reason can't find employment, people who come out of prison, who can't find employment, someone like a man that got an injury, or something at work and now is trying to find a new job. There's many reasons why you should pay Social Security, and it should be done in a way that's sustainable and efficient. And that was what this SASSA was supposed to do. The money gets paid onto your card or something like that. And then this card you can put into a bank teller and it will just give you, let's say, the cash you need. Now, this actually, 2017, I remember that time, especially old people, they were queuing for kilometers outside of these social grant centers trying to get money, and it wasn't there. And to put it into perspective, like these people, they were trying to get like, I don't know, 500, 600 Rand, 1,000 Rand, divide 1,000 Rand by 15, then you'll have the dollar price, or by 18, then you'll have the dollar price. And, so it's almost no money, but that's how desperate they are. They're just trying to get the small amount of money out of the system, even although it means standing in the sun or the cold for a week or 2 weeks to get it, and this is like, people don't forget this, it's very stressful. Next up, the ANC's land reform policies have also faced significant criticism for being slow and ineffective. Despite promises of land redistribution, the ANC has struggled to implement meaningful land reform, with many South Africans still lacking access to land for farming or housing. The willing buyer, willing seller approach to land reform, which the ANC initially adopted, has been criticized for being too market-friendly and failing to address historical injustices adequately. Land reform has remained a contentious issue, with many citizens feeling that the ANC has not done enough to correct the legacy of apartheid and provide them with economic opportunities tied to land ownership. So, yes, essentially, like, we're getting back to the land thing. So, the ANC, I forgot the date, but the date's passed a long time ago, by the way, and the ANC was supposed to transfer like 30% of arable land into the hands of like black, farmers, which they didn't do. And they could have one of the things that held them back, and it's a law they made. Well, okay, it's a law they made, but they were also, it was a compromise deal that they struck with the right-leaning opposition that someone needs to be willing to sell, and then the government buys it for a market price, or just below market, just slightly below market price. And when we're talking about land redistribution in any other normal country, it's not how it's done. Like you find someone who just has a massive amount of land like that exceeds his or her like needs, and then that person, you may still give them compensation, but you do need to take some of it. You don't go after the small farmer, like the white farmer who's got 1,000 hectares, 2,000 hectares. You go after these big people, who's got like a ridiculous amount of land, and then that you redistribute, like some of it. Also not all of it. Okay, well, some of you will argue with me. I said it in a different video, like a lot of black people by the rights will argue that return everything. Okay, fair. I don't know how economically helpful that will be. Bottom line, my point just here is the ANC failed with land redistribution, and a lot of South Africans, left and right wing, will agree to the same point. Like the transformation didn't happen, and a lot of the pressure, the social pressure we have in South Africa is due to skewed patterns of land ownership, and it's like it runs along it runs along racial lines. It's a big problem, It's a very big problem. I'm very worried about it. Corruption has been a pervasive issue throughout the ANC's efforts at economic and social transformation. Tender fraud, mismanagement, and patronage have affected numerous development projects. resulted in wasted resources and unfinished projects. Corruption has not only drained resources from essential programs, but has also created a culture of mistrust, where citizens feel that public funds meant for social and economic development are frequently misused for personal gain. This mismanagement has significantly hindered the ANC's ability to deliver its promises and has left many South Africans disillusioned with the party's commitment to transformation. So, once again, we touched on it previously, but when you have this tender fraud and mismanagement and patronage, it creates a clear message to anyone that observes this that, okay, the ANC's in it to get rich. They don't care about the poor. They don't care about the marginalized black majority. They want to make some money, and this is a failure. In summary, the ANC's economic and social transformation policies, while ambitious, have often failed to deliver on their promises. The limited impact of BEE and land reform, combined with high unemployment, failing SOEs, and widespread corruption, has left millions of South Africans feeling that their economic circumstances have not improved under the ANC's leadership. So, look, it's a complicated issue. It's really, really complicated. The economic failures, because you want to do some good, you want to balance it out, but then there's I mentioned the ANC is a broad church, right? There will be many individuals in your organization who want to become rich. Also, I'm very skeptical about politicians in general. I think it's time. We're not ready for it. But we should start working. Okay, this is going to sound whack as crazy, but I don't care about how it sounds. Like Star Trek. I don't know how many of you have seen Star Trek. The globe, the world, has to move towards something like Star Trek, where basically there is no class division. Everyone has the resources they need. Everything's sustainable. Everyone has medical care, everyone has education, everyone has a purpose, everyone has a job, there's nice air conditioning throughout the ship, there's nice entertainment. That's where you should be. And I know, of course, you cannot move to such a society overnight. But what you can do is you can identify areas where you can say, okay, how can we create the best economic system for this period, for the next 10 years, while we grow economically for becoming a socialist state later. How can we do this? And then maybe you should break up the problem into smaller segments. If you're a computer programmer, any computer programmer will tell you that. Break the thing up. You have a major design, but when you build the thing, you build it from small pieces. You don't just start broad brushes all over the place and create the thing. You start with small pieces here and there. And for example, instead of having a tenderpreneur, get a traditional company. Get a traditional company and tell them okay, you should use local small distributors or small service delivery people, let's say the caterers. They should be let's say a black company. If they're not a black company, please, you need to it explained to us in detail why it cannot be this black company. Like, then their excuse may be like, oh, okay, but we've got a lot of people to feed. Then the answer should be like, okay, get 25 of these companies. Like, you don't need one big company to do everything. Now I know, look, then the next thing you will say is like, oh yeah, but coordination. I'm like, fine. Then get another company to coordinate them. Or, like the main company does the coordination. Get more companies to work together to basically deliver the project. And there is software which you can run, which you can see like, this is the this is the price of what things will cost. And these small companies, they can, like, instead of designing a tender themselves, like, they can just like add their prices, and let's say the certificate of quality that they have, and like, let's say their qualifications that they have to do the job. They submit it into a database, like some AI software, and the AI then like structures some way to bring as many people into this project as possible while keeping the costs down. And you see, like, economically, you can do that. Like, when we talk about land ownership, we spoke a lot about land ownership in the previous video, but like, there's creative ways you can deal with it. Like, you can experiment with, like, before you break the current system, like, bring in various kinds of like experiments. Like, say, dedicate 10% of arable land to Marxist collective farms. Dedicate like 10% to traditional African farming. Dedicate 10% of farms to, let's say, landless people who have expertise. Dedicate 10% of farms to tech bros, people who want to use like GMO or AI or robotics to basically utilize land. Like, don't fall for the trap that, like, there's only one way and it's my way or the highway, or, win, lose, win. Don't go for that like simple argument. Go for like win-win, and I feel the ANC, like, with its economic approach, quite often what they also did is there would be this counter duality and stuff like that, counter currents within the same like policy, and that would slow down the entire process. So those are I can understand you're going from apartheid, which is a very distinct economy, which was weird. It's like the only economy in the world that ran like that. And now you want to go to an economy where you can attract both. You need to do three things. You need to attract Western money and technology. You need to attract Asian technology and investment. And then you need to like upgrade your infrastructure in the country so that people, like, can go to work, or that they can go and fetch food or something like that, medical emergencies. And like, lastly, people need food, like that's like the most basic goal, I believe, of a economic system. Can you feed people? Like, and that answer is no. You can look at many people, like, you should look at some of the videos of like SWMX, like when they speak to Tessa Dooms, for example, and she's not the only person who will say this. I've read this in many Google Scholar like papers, that a lot of South Africans, like 1 in 5 people, go to bed hungry, go to bed hungry at night, and it still hasn't changed. And now we have a supposedly new government between the TA and the ANC. It's still there. We still have hunger. So you see, this is another big failure. So enough of the negativity. If you are an ANC member, a dedicated one, please don't hunt me down, because I did make a positive video about you, about the economics of the ANC. Thank you very much for listening to me, and have a nice day. Goodbye.